Everyone, this is Rebecca Betterbread, and today I am doing a little mini class on genetic relatedness. We're excited to announce that we're going to be releasing a course shortly, so this is a teaser class for the course that will be released on Betterbread soon. But the goal of this presentation is to discuss the meaning and use of genetic relatedness. So in the course, the last presentation would have been on average genetic relatedness and its application in your breeding program. So this class, we will be discussing a similar method, genetic relatedness. Now here you will see my dogs. Unfortunately, though, they look like dog-llama hybrids, so I wanted to note that Betterbread does not support dog-llama breedings, in case that is not clear. Okay, but let's talk about what average genetic relatedness is. Average genetic relatedness is the average of how closely related to all other dogs in the Betterbread database a dog is. Of course, it is a complex calculation, but essentially it is the average of the relatedness to every single other dog in the database. So a dog that is the least related to the most dogs will be very different from the rest of the population. Genetic relatedness, however, is just how closely related your dog, which is not a llama, is to one other dog in the Betterbread database. Again, it's a complex calculation. This is used to create the categories and the potential breeding lists. Okay, so let's look at a pretend population. And this pretend population is meant to be a graphical representation of the PCOA graphs that UC Davis gives us. This, in reality, should be a 3D model that you could rotate and spin around and see how the dogs are related to each other in terms of their genetics. So let's look at this first potential breeding. These two dogs are distantly related, but you can tell they are within a bottleneck or cluster of genetics, and so their genetics are very typical for the population. A breeding between these two dogs would have very low IRs, meaning the puppies would be outbred, but on average they would have more typical genetics for this population. Of course, with every breeding there is a range in your puppies, so some of the puppies might fall outside of the bottleneck region. Now the second set of dogs, the green lines, both fall outside of the genetic bottleneck here, and they are also distantly related. A breeding between them would have low IRs or be outbred, but on average less common genetics for the population. So both these would be category 10 breedings. And again, each litter would have a range, so some of the puppies might fall into the genetic bottleneck or cluster of typical genetics. This third breeding between a dog that's in the center of the bottleneck cluster genetics with an outlier dog, or a dog that's outside of the genetics. They are also distantly related and would be a category 10 breeding. A breeding between the red line dogs would have low IRs, but the puppies would fall in a range. Some would be in the bottleneck and some might fall outside. Now, it's important to note that a dog that is inside the bottleneck will be related to a majority of the breed, because you can tell they are closely related to a majority of the dogs. Now, this last pair of dogs that I'm going to consider is more closely related. We could say maybe their category breeding would be a 6, but they are both far outside the cluster genetics for this population. A breeding between these two dogs would have higher IRs and therefore a lower category breeding, but the puppies would mostly all fall outside the typical genetics for the population. So this is a time when a closer genetic relatedness might be valuable because it would maintain the uncommon genetics of this population. The categories on Betterbread are based on the genetic relatedness between your dog of interest and each dog in the database. So remember to consider the concepts discussed here while using the categories to select for breeding mates. 3 out of 4 of the breedings we just discussed would be considered a category 10, but really varied in how typical or atypical the genetics produced would be. Outlier index and average genetic relatedness are the values to look at when considering this. If you have any questions, you can email us at theteam@betterbread.com, and I hope that this video helped clarify some information about genetic relatedness. Please look for our course to be released soon on Better Bread. Thanks for watching.